أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، السيدات والسادة، الحضور الكرام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يشرفني بداية الترحيب بكم في دوحة الجميع، وأتطلع للمشاركة معكم في هذه المناقشة التفاعلية بشأن موضوع تمويل التنمية، خطة التنمية المستدامة لعام 2030 وأهدافها وغاياتها، الجهود التي تقوم بها الدول والمنظمات الإقليمية ومنظمة الأمم المتحدة في دعم هذه الأجندة، وما هي السبل الكفيلة بالاستفادة من الدروس والإخفاقات والنجاحات في هذا المجال. أصحاب السعادة، أدعوكم ليكون النقاش محدداً وتفاعلياً، وتجنب البيانات المكتوبة أو المطولة، والتركيز ليس فقط على المشكلات بل على الحلول الممكنة والإبداعية. فانطلاقاً من إيماننا بأهمية التعاون الدولي للمضي قدماً بتنفيذ خطة التنمية المستدامة لعام 2030، تتفقون معي بأن نجاح تنفيذ هذه الخطة يعتمد بشكل رئيسي على توفر الإرادة السياسية وتعبئة الموارد على الصعيد الوطني والدولي والاستخدام الفعال لهذه الإمكانات. وتستذكرون كيف كانت استضافة الدوحة في العام 2008 لمؤتمر المتابعة الدولي لتمويل التنمية المعني باستعراض تنفيذ توافق آراء مونتيري والإعلان القوي الذي تمخض عنه هنا في هذا المكان بعد مشاورات شاقة، فلا ينبغي إغفاله، خاصة بعدما أكد عليه إعلان أديس أبابا 2015 ومؤتمرنا اليوم الذي يأتي استكمالاً لجهود دولة قطر في دعم الحراك الدولي لتنفيذ خطة التنمية المستدامة 2030. أصحاب السعادة، السيدات والسادة، لن تتمكن الدول النامية والأقل نمواً من تحقيق التنمية المستدامة في المجالات الاجتماعية والاقتصادية والبيئية إلا من خلال تمويل خططها الوطنية في مجالات الأهداف الإنمائية 16 من خلال تفعيل الهدف 17. وبالتالي سيكون من المفيد مراجعة التزاماتنا والتأكيد عليها في مجالات تفعيل الشراكة الدولية من أجل التنمية، تفعيل التعاون فيما بين بلدان الجنوب، وتفعيل سبل التعاون الثلاثي. كما ولا يمكن أن تغفل مناقشاتنا أهمية الوفاء بالالتزامات التي تعاهدت بها الدول الأعضاء، وبالأخص تلك متقدمة النمو، حيال هذه الخطة ورصد وتقييم التقدم المحرز في تنفيذ التعهدات الدولية المتفق عليها. وتتفقون معي بأن على كل دولة بالتالي أن تقوم من خلال نطاقها الوطني بإنشاء الآليات اللازمة والخطط الوطنية المطلوبة لتحقيق التنمية المستدامة داخلياً، والنظر في دورها الأدبي لمساعدة الدول الأخرى على عدم التخلف عن الركب. ففي دولة قطر على سبيل المثال تم إدماج خطة التنمية المستدامة لعام 2030 في استراتيجية التنمية الوطنية الثانية 2017-2022، وصارت جهودنا في مجال التعاون الدولي بما في ذلك المساعدات الخارجية جزء لا يتجزأ من خطتنا الوطنية، انطلاقاً من مسؤوليتنا والتزامنا بتعزيز شراكاتنا الإقليمية والدولية. ولذلك قدمت دولة قطر المساعدات الدولية للدول الصديقة بين 13 قطاع لمختلف المبادرات الإنسانية والتنموية في شتى أنحاء العالم، حيث يلاحظ أن الدعم الحكومي للمساعدات يصل إلى أكثر من 70% من نسبة المساعدات الخارجية مقارنة بالمساعدات غير الحكومية، بما يشير إلى الإرادة السياسية نحو الوفاء بتعهدات قطر الخارجية اتساقاً مع دورها كعضو فاعل ومسؤول في المجتمع الدولي. بينما جاء ما نسبته 30% من قيمة الدعم الخارجي كمساهمات قدمتها المنظمات والجمعيات الخيرية والإنسانية والمؤسسات المانحة القطرية، التي كثيراً ما تعمل على إيصال شتى أنواع المساعدات لمستحقيها وفق أفضل المعايير الدولية العالمية، وبالشراكة مع الوكالات الأممية المتخصصة والمؤسسات الإقليمية ودون الإقليمية والجهات النظيرة من مختلف أنحاء العالم. ويتضح أن دولة قطر قد تمكنت خلال السنوات الماضية من توسيع مساعداتها الخارجية جغرافياً وقطاعياً، حيث أخذت هذه المساعدات عدة أشكال، منها مساهمات وهبات أو منح مادية أو عينية أو فنية أو قروض ميسرة غالباً ما يتم شطبها، كما شملت الجهود القطرية كذلك دعم لمشاريع وبرامج إنسانية وتنموية. وقد ركزت دولة قطر على قطاع التعليم في مقدمة القطاعات المتلقية المساعدات من إجمالي المساعدات التنموية تفعيلاً للهدف الإنمائي الرابع. وكان النصيب الأكبر في المجال الإنساني قطاع الإغاثة، والذي شهد تضاعفاً ملحوظاً اعتباراً من بداية العقد الثاني من الألفية في ظل الكوارث الطبيعية وتلك الكوارث التي هي من صنع البشر. والجدير بالذكر أن نسبة المساعدات المقدمة من دولة قطر قد تجاوزت نسبة المساعدات الإنمائية الرسمية أودا المقررة على دول الشمال متقدمة النمو، حيث ناهزت مساعدات القطرية الخارجية حكومية وغير حكومية 2 مليار دولار سنوياً في المتوسط، علماً بأن دولة قطر غير ملزمة قانونياً بسداد تلك النسبة، إنما تقوم بالوفاء بها انطلاقاً من إيماننا بأهمية دعم أجندة التعاون فيما بين بلدان الجنوب والتعاون الثلاثي. وأجندة تمويل التنمية، مما ينعكس إيجاباً على تحقيق الأمن والسلم الدوليين وحقوق الإنسان والتنمية للجميع، تحقيقاً لمجتمعات مسالمة متكاملة لا يهمش فيها أحد، وقائمة على مؤسسات قوية تستند للمساءلة والكفاءة، وأكثر صموداً على التصدي لآفة التطرف وخطر الإرهاب. وفقاً للهدفين الإنمائيين ال11 وال16، واللذين هما محور اهتمام لسياسة دولة قطر الإنمائية. وفي الختام أشكر لكم إنصاتكم، وقبل أن نفتح المجال لتعليقاتكم أعطي الكلمة لسعادة الأمين العام.
Your Excellency, Mr. Al-Mahdi, Secretary General for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for Qatar, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure in joining the Secretary General to welcome you to the Ministerial Roundtable on the overall theme, sharing country experiences in mobilizing resources from public, private, domestic, and international resources towards the implementation of the Addis Ababa Action Agenda and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, Policy, and Institutional Innovations. We have arranged these ministerial roundtables into 2 sessions. Now we have the first session in the morning before lunch, then we shall have a second session after lunch. The roundtables respond to the mandate of Addis Agenda for the Financing for Development follow-up process to promote the sharing of lessons learned from experiences at the national level. They build on experience at the 2017 ECSOC Forum on Financing for Development follow-up and serve as a preview to the 2018 Financing for Development Forum, which will further expand the opportunities for countries to present their experiences at ministerial roundtables. All the ministerial roundtables at this conference will bring together representatives from countries at different income and vulnerability levels to present their policy and institutional innovations. The innovations can be broad-based reforms or interventions targeting specific action areas of the Addis Agenda. This type of constructive dialogue is what will help us all to implement Addis Agenda and to achieve the 2030 Agenda for the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm confident that you will have very candid and fruitful discussions at these 2 sessions roundtables. I thank you again for your participation. Thank you.
شكرا سعادة الأمين العام. الآن أعطي الكلمة for Her Excellency Mrs. Carmen Elena Falconi Vica, National Secretary for Planning and Development, Ecuador.
Good morning, Your Excellency, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to present Ecuador experience in mobilizing resources from public, private, domestic, and international sources towards the implementation of the National Development Plan. The National Development Plan of Ecuador has 2 main streams. First, the territorial strategy, and second, environmental sustainability. These 2 main streams are divided in 3 axes. The first one is rights for all during the lifetime. The second one, economy at the service of the society. And the third one, more society, better state. The first axis has three goals. First, guarantee a dignified life with equal opportunities for all the people. The second, assert interculturality and plurinationality, revealing diversity identities. And the third one, guarantee the rights of nature for current and future generations. The second axis has also three goals. The first one, reinforce the sustainability of the economic, social, and solidarity system as the Constitution of Ecuador established. The second, promote productivity and competitiveness for sustainable economic growth. And the third one, develop productive and environmental capacities to achieve food sovereignty and rural good and living. And the third axis, more society, better state, also has three goals. The first one, encourage a participatory society. The second, promote transparency and co-responsibility for a new social ethic. And the third one, guarantee sovereignty and peace. These 9 goals that you have seen are related with all the sustainable development goals, but principal to the first one, no poverty, the 10, the 15, the 8, the 11, and the 16 sustainable development goals. How these are related with the National Development Plan goals. The first one, a goal that we have, as we have seen, is guarantee a dignified life for equal opportunities for all people. In this slide, you can see how much money we have established that we need for achieve the goals from 2017 to 2021. The emphasis are made in the first goal, also in the 4 that is related with the sustainability of the economic system, and with the 5th that is promote productivity and competitiveness of sustainable economic growth and redistribute in solidarity way. These $54 million are composed for public and private national resources and also for international loans and grants. These costs that we have calculated are approximately and search to achieve all the goals and solution all the problems that Ecuador nowadays have. Here you can see the historical composition of social public expenditure. Basically, this expenditure that Ecuador has made since 2000 to 2017 are focused on non-poverty, good health and well-being, quality education, clean water and sanitation, and reduce inequalities. These costs are related with the Sustainable Development Goals. And as you can see, the red bars are related to education, the green with health, the purple with social welfare, the blue one, urban and development housing. Also, we have culture and others that it's little in comparison to the other coast. And as you can see, the historical composition of social public expenditure have been growing in the last 17 years. In the next slide, you can see the green line is the social expenditure as a percentage of GDP. The purple line is the public investment annual plan in relation to GDP. And the red line is the debt payment service in relation to GDP. As you can see, Ecuador is trying to convert this historical composition and reduce the debt service instead and trying to make more social expenditure. As you can see, in 2008, the social expenditure became to go down, but it's related with how we have, how much money we have. It's related to the price of oil, and also the debt payment service for Ecuador. It's bigger since 2016. We hope that we can change this tendency, and at 2021, only the 5% of GDP is related to the payment service. Now we want to present you a case of a study of Ecuador. It's housing. The alignment of the national plan, national development plan for the period 2017 to 2021, is related with the goal rights for all during their lifetime. What Ecuador has done is in the last 10 years, we want to give all the people equal opportunities. The government has 1,000 urban and rural housing solutions were built. Also, since the creation of the social bank, 157,000 million housing loans are delivered nationwide, and by August 2017, the Social Security Bank has delivered $1,350 million for loans related to housing. How is this related with the alignment of the Sustainable Development Goals? Our goals are to increase to 9.5 the number of homes with proper housing that are in the situation of extreme poverty, increase volume of public interest housing credit with respect to the total volume of housing loans from 2.6 to 20%, reduce the incidence of rural poverty by income from 38.2 to 31.9, and increase the percentage of households in rural areas that have safe water and adequate sanitation. In this context, Ecuador has been applying some solutions since 2008. The first policy that we apply is a housing bond. In 2008, quantitative housing deficit was 23.2%. The objective of this policy was that the housing bond was not reimbursable and is granted by the state to finance the acquisition, improvement, or construction of a new housing. You can apply in any of these two cases. Since 2009, this bond was addressed to houses appraised up to $60,000. Who are the beneficiaries? Are citizens of legal age, people with limited economic resources who live in rural and marginal urban areas. What are the achievements of this policy? First, we have reduced the housing deficit. Second, increased the percentage of families that own their homes. Third, solve problems of overcrowding. Fourth, improve the purchasing power of people with limited economic resources. And fifth, improve the quality of the construction. The challenges that we face is that we have to strengthen credit capacity with the expansion in basic service and support from local governments. In Ecuador, you have a lot of people that have their own land and housing, but they don't have the proper service like water or sanitation system. The guidelines, what is the relation with the guidelines agenda is that we can collocate domestic public resources and external debt for finance this program. The second program that we have is the credit and loans for people. The lack of access to credit for housing by public and private banks is an important matter in Ecuador. Also, we have urban and rural gaps in housing sector, and we want to reduce the we want to fight the reduced coverage of basic service in the rural sector. For this, the government has started to work with the decentralized autonomous governments. The objective was to grant access for housing credit as well as provision of basic service, water, electricity, sewage, and solid waste management. Also, these loans are directed to priority groups and marginal rural areas. The achievement was that this program to expand the coverage of drinkable water and sewerage service, and also the government gave loans to local governments for irrigation works, rural viability, and drinkable water. The challenge that the government faced was warranty accessibility of housing loans for low-income families by strengthening public banking. In the previous years to 2010, Ecuador don't have private banks that give loans to people that don't meet all the requirement loans. So the government started to put public money in private banks, and with this try to relax the strict loan requirements that people must face. And the government act as a warrantor of these loans. For this, the government used domestic public resources and addressing systemic investment. Also, loans requirements, as I said, has been more flexible, and the government established a preferential interest rate. In this policy from 2014 to 2016, also the main problem was the lack of access to housing credits. The action are credit for housing through public banking, also the Bank of Social Security Institute of Ecuador, and private banking are the institutions that start to placement the credit. The resources, the public resources, instead of being placed only by a public bank, start to be placed by private banks. The objective was that Social Security banking contemplate in the midterm the financing of housing from the construction products of housing and expansion and remodeling, which allow to build a house or that people that only have land. The beneficiaries also are direct to affiliates of the Ecuadorian Institute of Social Security, retirees of the Ecuadorian Social Security, and also the credit are direct to private enterprises, private housing enterprises. The achievement was housing loans, mortgage loans, and acquisition of land at a lower interest rate, facilitating access to low and middle income affiliates, and private bank loans public, that allocate public resources. The interest rate with this program goes down from 10% to 4.99%. As you see, it's an important reduction. The challenges was to improve the attention to vulnerable groups and families harmed by the earthquake that Ecuador suffered on 2016, and to expand the quality of coverage. For this, the resources used are domestic, public, and private resources and external debt. And nowadays, the government is trying to close the urban and rural gaps with emphasis on priority groups. The program that Ecuador is implementing is Casa para Todos, and search a construction of 325,000 houses among the country during these 5 years. In addition to solving the housing deficit, the government seeks to guarantee the right to safe and a healthy habitat. Also, these loans are directed for people in conditions of vulnerability and extreme poverty. The resources will be financed through public banking, which be inserted in the national economy. But also, the challenge is to try to build public-private partnerships by the implementation of a funding that help to allocate $4,000 million in these 5 years. This funding are hoped to come from domestic and public resources, debt, external debt, private resources, and grants. The grants are planning that will be direct to solve the problem that we have in the two provinces that are majorly affected by the earthquake that Ecuador suffered in 2016. As conclusions, and it will seem very logical, during the last 2 decades in social interest housing, the changes operate in terms of implementation that combine subsidized focus on demand with incorporation of private sector providers. Also, the preferential interest rate and the strict loans requirements are key aspects to achieve the goals with the participation of the private sector. Also, we have seen that the co-responsibility of the future owner of the house helps to avoid problems such as house maintenance and payment of public services. Why I said this? Because we have seen that when we only give this bonus, the owner of the house didn't feel that the house is of his property and that he has to make the effort to pay that house. So that's why the policy changed to loans. Even if the government give like grants depending on the people's income, the people must pay a minimum, make a minimum payment, and the owner of the house feel the co-responsibility of taking care of the house and their property. And also we have found that financial external aid and external loans combined with domestic resources are essential to succeed in achieving housing goals. As you have seen, when Ecuador only tried to solve this problem of housing with internal resources, it's very difficult to do it. And when we have suffered the earthquake, even if Ecuador is a middle-income country, these resources help us to solve the majority of the problem that we have with the housing in these two provinces that I have told you. Thank you.
شكرا سعادتك على هذا العرض. والآن أعطي الكلمة for His Excellency Mr. Michael Gerber, Ambassador, Special Envoy for Global Sustainable Development. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, His Excellency. Mr. Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the State of Qatar, Mr. Undersecretary General for Economic and Social Affairs of the United Nations, Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure and honor to be here today, and I would like to thank the government of the State of Qatar and UNDESA for hosting this important conference and for bringing the processes of financing for development and the 2030 agenda together, closer together, because they really belong to each other. The Addis Ababa Action Agenda and the means of implementation of the 2030 agenda are a broad scope of topics and themes that we can address, but I would like to focus on three specific aspects of this agenda. First, the finance, of course. Second, partnerships. And third, accountability and policy coherence. First, finance. We've heard it also in the first panel this morning. It is a great challenge to mobilize the investment needed for sustainable development. According to UNCTAD, we need investments of 5 to 7 trillion per year in order to achieve the SDGs by 2030. The annual funding gap amounts to 2.5 trillion US dollar, or we could also say 3% of the global GDP. If we look at the global context, I think we can state progress on implementation of the Addis Ababa Action Agenda is mixed or uneven. On all the three main components of the Addis Agreement, domestic resources, the private investments, and international development cooperation, there have been encouraging steps, but also some setbacks. On domestic resources, for example, many countries, especially poorer countries, have been able to increase their own resources to finance sustainable development. And progress has been made at the global level on issues such as illicit financial flows. On private investment, there is a positive trend to align investments with the SDGs. However, there has been a drop in overall investment in recent years, including in foreign direct investment, especially in some poorer regions where it is most needed. Finally, on aid budgets, there is increasing pressure to use ODA for issues such as peace and security, measures related to climate change, or migration, which at times comes at the cost of financing sustainable development. With regard to the domestic resources, when the Addis Ababa Action Agenda was adopted in 2015, Switzerland subscribed to the Addis Tax Initiative, doubling its technical cooperation with partner countries in the area of domestic revenue mobilization and taxation until 2020. Regarding the private finance, the 2030 Agenda and the Addis Ababa Action Agenda make a clear case of scaling sustainable finance and to channel more private investment into SDG-relevant sectors. I think there is a growing awareness that private finance is a very important part of the solution to global challenges and that it will help scale up sustainable financing solutions. There's a lot of financial innovation happening at the moment to attract more investment into SDG-relevant sectors. Blending public funds with those of private and commercial investors and philanthropists have a great potential to increase finance available for sustainable development. We see this, for example, in the context of the new private sector window of the IDA, the World Bank's Fund for the Poorest Countries. Development finance institutions can play a critical role at the intersection between the public and private sector. Supported by official development assistance and private finance, these vehicles boost investment in funds and companies in emerging markets that are often underfunded due to the associated risks. In Switzerland, we have a DFI, the SIFEM it's called. It has supported more than 500,000 jobs since its inception in 2005, which includes jobs sustained and created. Switzerland, along with other partners, has supported, for example, the OECD and the WEF's Redesigning Development Finance Initiative, aimed at developing a more integrated public-private financial ecosystem, models, skills, and financial instruments, which helps different partners identify ways and models with which funds can be pooled to increase the impact on sustainable development. We have to take advantage of the fast-growing group of investors looking for opportunities for investment approaches, addressing social and environmental challenges. We've heard that also by the UNDP administrator this morning. Both in developing and developed countries, social impact investors are growing fast, and there are new models for socially and environmentally responsible investments. The public sector, or ODA, can play a catalytic role in bringing in private resources, especially during early project preparation and development, which is costly and time-consuming. In the context of Switzerland's international cooperation, we have started working on something called the Social Impact Incentives Model, whereby a public funder would provide payments to private investors for social outcomes. The pilot has started in Mexico in collaboration with the Inter-American Development Bank last year. One of the most successful microfinance funds in Switzerland, the Responsibility Global Microfinance Fund, was launched in November 2003 with an initial capital of around $3.5 million from the Swiss government. Today, this is a flagship microfinance fund worth more than 1 billion in private capital invested in various microfinance institutions in the south and the east. For the same purpose, Switzerland created the Swiss Capacity Building Facility. The facility is a public-private partnership that provides small technical assistance grants to financial service providers in developing countries. Its contribution reduces the entry costs for those seeking to offer innovative and affordable financial services to low-income earners, smallholder farmers, and small businesses. Financial products such as agricultural input insurance or livestock leases allows clients to boost their income, employ more people, and reduce their vulnerability. These are just a few examples illustrating that the SDGs are actually a playground of opportunities. And a lot of entrepreneurs with smart ideas are looking for the finance to get started or to scale up their business. In its report, Better Business, Better World, by the Business and Sustainable Development Commission, it states that achieving the global goals creates at least $12 trillion in opportunities by 2030 in food and agriculture, cities, energy and materials, as well as health and well-being alone in these 4 sectors. Switzerland is in a strong position to contribute to positive change with regard to financing sustainable development. We host one of the most important financial centers worldwide, and we have a great know-how, expertise in the domain of sustainable finance, as well as the capacities to innovate. Thus, the share of sustainable finance in the Swiss financial sector is steadily growing. In 2016, approximately $250 billion were invested sustainably in Switzerland. This makes a share of 7% of the total volume in the financial sector. Since 2005, this market is growing almost 30% per year, although it is still a niche, of course. I would like to refer to the second aspect I mentioned at the beginning, the partnerships pillar. In Switzerland, we are fostering multi-stakeholder partnerships for the SDGs at national and international level. In development cooperation, for example, we have decided to double the number of private-public partnerships until 2020, so within 3-4 years. Based on a new implementation concept, the 2030 Agenda and the Addis Agenda are currently being mainstreamed in Switzerland's international cooperation in order to increase effective contributions to the SDGs by and through our partnerships. Also in the field of statistics and data management, there is still a lot of work to do. We all know that. Therefore, Switzerland supports, for example, Paris 21 to foster partnerships in statistics for sustainable development and, more concretely, capacities in statistical offices of developing countries. Last but not least, the third aspect of which I would like to refer to today, accountability and policy coherence. Switzerland is convinced that the SDGs can only be achieved if the 2030 Agenda is owned by all relevant actors around the world. The inclusion of non-state actors in the implementation process is therefore key and eventually raises accountability. In Switzerland, we have conducted a baseline study and gap analysis looking at each and every target of the SDGs, 169 targets, in order to find out where we stand in terms of achievement and to define respective measures. In this extensive exercise, non-state actors were consulted and invited to bring in their opinions and proposals. Based on this work, Switzerland is currently establishing a rather sophisticated implementation and monitoring system to track and to follow up on our contributions to the SDGs at domestic and international level, already using more than 90 indicators. The platform, which was already in place during the intergovernmental negotiations of the 2030 Agenda and the Addis Agenda, was established now as a platform of dialogue taking place about twice a year and has become permanent. Moreover, a group of non-state actors with representatives from the civil society, private sector, science, and youth is serving us as an advisory panel in this implementation process. So with this inclusive and transparent system in place, we will not only increase our accountability towards the Swiss public, but also policy coherence, because our activities in the field of domestic and foreign policy become more visible and can thus also be better aligned. If you're interested to learn more about the way we implement the 2030 Agenda, I would like to invite you all to read Switzerland's Voluntary National Review, which we will present at the HLPF next year. Thank you very much.
شكرا سعادتك على هذا العرض. والآن أنقل الميكروفون for His Excellency Mr. Francisco Javier Cebrian, Ambassador of Mexico to the State of Qatar.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. On behalf of the government of Mexico, I would like to thank the government of Qatar for hosting this high-level conference. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development constitutes for Mexico a state commitment. This commitment is such that in April of this year, President Enrique Peña Nieto himself spearheaded the installation of the National Council for the 2030 Agenda, highlighted by a multi-stakeholder approach which places the person at the core of national efforts and public policies, and which establishes a work scheme that transcends government periods and political parties. Taking it one step further, President Peña Nieto announced two major commitments which will shape the development future of my country. First, the 2018 federal budget will be aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. And second, Mexico will reform its planning law to incorporate the SDGs into the National Development Plan. Mexico has taken further actions at the national level. First, the Senate has implemented a working group for legislative monitoring the Sustainable Development Goals, which has 34 committee members. Second, the National Conference of Governors created the Commission for the Compliance of the 2030 Agenda, and progress has been made in state commissions. Already 12 Mexican states have established coordinating mechanisms to implement the agenda. Third, from the Office of the President, it is operated the Specialized Technical Committee of the Sustainable Development Goals, with the support of the National Institute of Statistics and Geography to monitor the SDG indicators. And fourth, the Mexican Agency for International Development Cooperation is working towards the alignment of the IDC policies to the 2030 Agenda. Additionally, we launched the Alliance for Sustainability, a platform for a strategic collaboration with the private sector, which I will come back in a few minutes. I would also like to highlight that Mexico was the first country in the world to present its national voluntary review of the Sustainable Development Goals to the United Nations, and will be presenting it again next year at the 2018 High-Level Political Forum. Additionally, we hosted two retreats for the Group of Friends of Monterrey, 2016 and 2017, to reinforce the dialogue on the contentious issues and scale up the commitments towards the Financing for Development Forum, working with our partners such as Germany, and in close coordination with ONDESA, we will be hosting the third retreat of the Group of Friends of Monterrey in mid-March of 2018. I will now address the role of international development cooperation and the challenges to build an international development architecture fit to support the universality of the 2030 Agenda. How can we build an international development architecture that is efficient in warranting access to all developing countries to the type and amount of support they need which complies with our promise of leaving no one behind and be effective in building global public goods, the international cooperation for development of the future must ensure that all countries contribute and receive based on their capacities and needs, including but not limited to financial resources, including ODA and access to preferential financing, knowledge, exchange of experiences, academic and scientific exchanges, and strengthening of the public, particularly at the local level, and private sectors, with emphasis on medium and small companies. In this sense, a fit-for-purpose and tailor-made international development cooperation strategy, it is instrumental. We need to go beyond ODA. Does not simply mean replacing it with other flows, such as South-South cooperation or private resources. Mexico is not calling for rebalancing on the current ODA allocation. Let me state it in clear terms. Least developed countries should and will remain the priority of international community and will have their needs accounted for first. Nonetheless, it is also true that ODA can enable Southern providers to support other developing countries through South-South and triangular cooperation as a leverage and enabler of other financing for development flows. Secondly, as it has been recognized in different fora, we need to conceive development in a multidimensional and universal manner, according with the mandate of the 2030 Agenda, and build a methodology that it is not limited to per capita income as an instrument to measure development and assigning cooperation resources, including ODA. Thirdly, we need to continue to strengthen South-to-South and triangular cooperation. I would like to underline the commitment of my country, and if I may, of Latin America, with these modalities of cooperation, which encompass more than 1,500 actions in productive sectors, particularly agriculture, social services, such as health, and capacity building. We must advance in conceiving South-to-South cooperation as a public policy that is predictable, transparent, and managed with the highest standards. Without a doubt, the 2018 conference to review the Buenos Aires Action Plan in 1978, which we hope will also update the Nairobi Declaration of 2009, it will be a privileged occasion to do so. Finally, we must continue to build an inclusive and multi-stakeholder global alliance in which all the actors and sectors are involved. The work of the Global Partnership for Effective Cooperation continues to be crucial, and we must continue to foster synergies with the United Nations system. I would like to emphasize that this proposal to build a new international development architecture framework is not, in any way, a zero-sum game. We must and can design a solution in which we all win, and we urge our partners to advance with us in that direction. Now, I would like to refer to different policy innovations my country has established and promoted in the implementation of the 2030 Agenda, policies which are crucial to overcome stasis. In the Mexican Agency for International Development Cooperation, as I mentioned before, we launched the Partnership for Sustainability, which aims to establish a strategic collaboration platform with the private sector in order to promote international cooperation projects that contribute to achieving the 2030 Agenda. The importance of this partnership relies in the fact that neither the state nor the market can unilaterally achieve the transition towards sustainable development models that holistically address current global economic, social, and environmental challenges. Companies possess the financial means, the human resources, and the technological and innovative capabilities to transform global challenges into inclusive and sustainable business opportunities. In this context, The immediate challenge is to build trust and to demonstrate that governments are a strategic long-term partner to develop sustainable solutions. And with this, I will conclude. 15 years ago, in Monterrey, Mexico, invited the international community to join efforts to identify adequate flows for financing for development. Today, we are emphatic in reiterating the need for the global community to renew its commitment to sustainable development through a vigorous drive to mobilize resources to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Mexico will continue to promote the virtues of multilateralism and will continue its work towards achieving the ambitious commitments set out in the Addis Ababa Action Agenda and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Thank you very much.
شكرا سعادة السفير على هذا العرض. والآن أعطي المايك إلى Mr. Frederick Agha, Deputy Director General, WTO.
Thank you very much, co-chairs, excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. The WTO is very happy to have been invited, and we thank the UNESA for the invitation, and we commend the government of the state of Qatar for the facilities and hospitality that has been put in place for this very important and auspicious meeting. We would want to share some of the experiences from a multilateral perspective, focusing critically on the role of trade in mobilizing resources from the perspective of the WTO. I will take you through a few slides which will convey two main key messages. First, the role of trade as a mobilizer of resources, and second, the experience of the WTO in delivering on the SDGs. My first slide, if they can help guide me through the slides, takes into account the fact that both the Agenda 2030 and the Addis Agenda recognize that trade is an engine for inclusive economic growth and poverty reduction that contributes to the promotion of sustainable development. And I believe this is not by accident. This is because I think all of us recognize that trade has been an engine of growth and has contributed to the reduction of poverty over the past decades, particularly in narrowing the gaps, income gaps between developed and developing countries, as well as in reducing poverty in an unprecedented manner under the Millennium Development Goals. So, if we look at trade as a development resource mobilizer, with the linkage conceptually lies in the role of trade, the linkages between trade and economic growth. Because from trade and growth, you have better potentials to get resources for both private companies and for governments. It is these resources which governments get through trade that they can invest in providing those development targets that help achieve the social and environmental goals of the economy. However, the important thing we need to also know is that trade alone is not enough. Trade will never, ever alone do the trick. Trade needs to be supported and accompanied by complementary policies which will ensure inclusiveness and ensure also that the benefits reach the largest sections of the population as much as possible. Those policies will also help government in trying to get those who may lose out of trade reforms to adjust accordingly. In looking at the types of complementary policies that you need, one would say from the perspective of the WTO that this depends on the peculiar economic and political situation of the country. So this is not a one-size-fits-all kind of framework. Each country will need to look at its specific conditions and determine those complementary policy options that will help it mainstream the reforms, the trade reforms that it needs for its development. I can put you through some examples of these policies and the goals that these policies seek to achieve, particularly in trying to improve the country's ability to trade and benefit from trade, as well as its competitiveness. These policies help, in particular, to reduce trade costs, build trade capacity for production, and particularly taking advantage of the Aid for Trade initiative in the WTO, improving connectivity, both physical and digital, improving the business environment, ensuring a more active labor market policy framework, the provision of support for workers and adjustment, education policies to equip people with the right skills to participate in an information-driven global economy, and also mainstreaming of gender issues and empowerment of women economically. Also very important in many of our countries is the issue of access to finance, and including trade finance, particularly what we have seen since the financial crisis in 2008. Our perspective in the WTO is that these policy reforms in these areas work, and we have evidence to show, largely because countries, from our experience, that have integrated into the multilateral trading system have been shown to achieve faster trade and GDP growth. They have been more resilient in crisis. They have increased their competitiveness and export diversification, and they have become better and greater attractors of foreign direct investment. We also note that when integrating into the multilateral trading system, these countries tend to have better access to new markets, better access to new technologies, and better access to new investment opportunities. And you will see from this graph that we have shown here would be the experience of those countries, the trade performance experience of those countries that joined the WTO since 1995. And this is in terms of nominal growth in trade. They have done better than those that did not, or even were in the WTO, but did not do the kinds of reforms that these countries were made to undertake during the accessions. So we are saying that whereas people can unilaterally do these reforms, for some of these countries, acceding to the WTO forced them to undertake these reforms, and these reforms have been beneficial to reinforce the role of trade in contributing to economic growth and the achievement of the 2030 agenda. We now look at how the WTO is organizing in implementing Agenda 2030 and the Addis Agenda. We must, from the speeches that you heard at the opening session, recognize the importance of multilateral cooperation. Although there have been some uncertainties and undue rhetoric around the world today, one would want to think that multilateral cooperation remains important in achieving the 2030 agenda. At the WTO, we have been working closely with the World Bank and the IMF and the FAO and the ILO to look at those elements of policies that will ensure coherence and respond to some of the challenges that we have today. The WTO also works closely with UNCTAD and the International Trade Center in what is popularly known as the Geneva Trade Hub to bring together all the support and other specialized agencies may have in the different areas of implementation. We have, at the organizational level, established a task force, which is to try to keep track of all developments on the 2030 agenda so that nothing falls between the gaps. This task force meets every quarter, and it has worked out a document on mainstreaming trade in the SDGs. It's going to be a manual that will be published early next year. And this manual is informed by the fact that the implementation of the SDGs has been given to the UNDP, which is seeking to get countries to mainstream the SDGs in their national development and regional development strategies. And we are hoping that we need to avoid the mistake of the SDGs where the implementation strategies did not take into account the trade or the role of trade, particularly given the fact that trade has been assigned this significant role in the SDGs. We are helping countries do this, or members to do this through our Aid for Trade initiative, the enhanced integrated framework for LDCs, the Standards and Trade Development Facility, and the Trade Facilitation Agreement Facility. We also have, through the support of donors, been putting together trade-related capacity building activities to help countries benefit better from their participation in the multilateral trading system. What has been our experience with delivering on the targets specifically referred to the WTO in the SDGs? We have, with respect to SDG 2, zero hunger, this goal urges the reduction of distortions in agricultural markets, and the WTO's export competition in agriculture decision reached at the Nairobi Ministerial Conference delivers on this target by prohibiting the use of export subsidies and other measures of equivalent effect. We are now working, and we hope that members will be able to agree and deliver on a further outcome on subsidies at MC11 in Buenos Aires next month. On SDG 3 for good health, you will recall that at the beginning of the year, the WTO TRIPS Agreement Amendment, paragraph 6, came into effect, and we believe that this will make it easier for developing countries to have the secure legal pathway to access affordable medicines in line with Target 3B. On SDG 14, life below water, WTO negotiations to eliminate subsidies that cause overfishing and overcapacity are very advanced, and hopefully an outcome in this area could also be reached at MC11. And we hope that by so doing, the WTO again will be able to deliver on Target 14.6 of this goal. I conclude here, and thank you for all your attention.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair, Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Qatar. Dear colleagues, I think at this roundtable, ministerial roundtable, we have listened to the presentations of three colleagues from Ecuador, Mexico, and Switzerland, share their national experiences. And we also heard a presentation from colleagues from WTO, who has shared their experience from a multilateral perspective. Of course, we don't forget financing for development and in promoting implementation of 20th agenda with trade is a very important area. Especially we are talking about the issue in Doha. We do remember that although the Doha round for trade negotiations have been suspended, but I think I hope that trade negotiation will be resolved in the coming years. And now we have, before lunch, we have around over 30 minutes for interactive dialogue. For the management house, my suggestion would be for our technicians who are controlling the lights to turn off that light to focus in the podium. Otherwise, it's difficult for us to see the floor. So then secondly, I think for those who want to speak, please raise your plates. I should give the floor. First, I'd like to acknowledge that the distinguished representative of China, the ambassador from China ambassador to Qatar, Ambassador Lee, you have the floor.
Thank you. سعادة الدكتور أحمد بن حسن الحمادي أمين عام وزارة خارجية دولة قطر. سعادة السيد ليو جمين وكيل أمين عام الأمم المتحدة. بداية اسمحوا لي أن أضم صوتي للتعبير عن جزيل الشكر لدولة قطر لاستضافتها لهذا الاجتماع. واسمحوا لي كسفير الصين لدى دولة قطر ومندوب عن بلدي لهذا الاجتماع أن أطرح باختصار بعض رؤى الصين تجاه موضوع تمويل التنمية. موضوع التنمية هو تمويل التنمية هو مكون أساسي لتقدم التعاون الدولي من أجل التنمية وتنفيذ خطة التنمية المستدامة لعام 2030، وهو يحظى باهتمام بالغ من قبل المجتمع الدولي وخاصة الدول النامية. وفي هذا الصدد ترى الصين بأنه على الدول أن تعزز الإرادة السياسية والتمسك بمبدأ المسؤوليات المشتركة ولكن المتباينة، والتمسك بالتعاون الجنوب والشمال بصورة أساسية يتكامل معه التعاون الجنوب والتعاون الثلاثي، والتطبيق الأمين لتوافق مونتري وخطة عمل أديس أبابا، والتعبئة الكاملة لموارد التنمية على المستوى الدولي والإقليمي والوطني. وعلى الدول المتقدمة الوفي الكامل والعاجل بتعهداتها في تقديم مساعدات التنمية وإعطاء الأولوية للدعم المالي للدول النامية لتنفيذ خطة التنمية المستدامة. وعلى الدول العمل معاً على تحسين الإدارة الاقتصادية العالمية ودفع العولمة على نحو أكثر انفتاحاً وتسامحاً وتوازناً وتقاسم المنفعة والفوز المشترك وتهيئة الظروف الخارجية السانحة لتحقيق التنمية. الصين أكبر دولة نامية في العالم وتشارك بصورة نشطة وتساهم في التنمية في التعاون الدولي للتنمية. خلال العقود الماضية وفي الوقت الذي حققت فيه الصين التنمية لنفسها قدمت مساعدات من كافة الجوانب منها المالية والتقنية وبناء القدرات إلى أكثر من 100 دولة نامية. وفي السنوات الأخيرة رفعت الصين مساهمتها تجاه التعاون الدولي للتنمية، فخلال حضور الرئيس الصيني شي جين بينغ الجمعية العامة للأمم المتحدة في شهر سبتمبر عام 2015 أعلن عن تأسيس صندوق الصين الأمم المتحدة للسلام والتنمية وصندوق المساعدات للتعاون الجنوب والجنوب، ورفعت بذلك المساعدات المقدمة للدول النامية. وفي سبتمبر هذا العام وهو عام 2015 أعلن رئيس الوزراء الصيني السيد لي كيتشانغ خلال حضوره مؤتمر رفيع المستوى للجمعية العامة للأمم المتحدة أعلن عن زيادة المساهمة المالية من الصين للوكالات المعنية بالتنمية التابعة للأمم المتحدة، يخصص للتنفيذ خطة التنمية المستدامة لعام 2030. كما أعلن الرئيس شي جين بينغ في شهر سبتمبر الماضي أمام اجتماع الحوار بين الدول الأسواق الناشئة والدول النامية عن أن الصين ستقدم 500 مليون دولار أمريكي لصندوق المساعدات للتعاون الجنوب والجنوب وتوفير 40,000 فرصة للتدريب والتأهيل في الصين للدول النامية خلال السنة القادمة، وهو ما يعكس عزم الصين في التعاون الدولي للتنمية. إلى جانب ذلك تدفع الصين بقوة مبادرة الحزام والطريق، وقامت مع مجموعة من الدول ومنها دولة قطر بتأسيس البنك الآسيوي للاستثمار في البنية التحتية وبنك التنمية الجديد، وذلك من أجل إفساح المجال أوسع وطرق أكثر للدول النامية في الحصول على التمويل. وأمام المؤتمر الوطني 19 للحزب الشيوعي الصيني المنعقد في الشهر الماضي أعلن الرئيس شي جين بينغ بأن الصين سوف تزيد من المساعدات إلى الدول النامية وخاصة الدول الأقل نمواً، وتدعم الجهود لتقليل الفجوة في التنمية بين الجنوب والشمال. والصين ستتحمل مسؤولياتها الدولية كدولة نامية كبيرة والعمل مع الجميع لدفع التعاون الدولي لتمويل التنمية ودفع الإسراع في عملية تنفيذ خطة التنمية المستدامة. وفي الختام أكرر شكر لدولة قطر لاستضافتها هذا المؤتمر أو الاجتماع ولمساهماتها الدائمة في التعاون الدولي لتمويل التنمية في مختلف المناطق في العالم. شكراً.
I thank Ambassador Lee of China for his remarks. I now give the floor to a colleague from Canada.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, Dr. Ahmed Hassan Al-Hamadi, Your Excellency, Mr. Liu Zhenmin, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank the Government of Qatar for organizing this conference. This important discussion provides an opportunity for us to build new partnerships that will help mobilize the necessary financial resources to achieve the SDGs, especially for the poorest and most vulnerable. Here in Qatar, it's been a very good week for the promotion of development. A few days ago, the Qatar Foundation, which is a private non-profit organization, hosted the World Innovation Summit for Education, and now we have this high-level conference. Clearly, there are considerable commitments and many good ideas aimed at achieving sustainable development. As always, the challenge remains effective implementation. I'd like to address the first guiding question of this round table. In Canada, we've recently taken a number of important steps to meet the 2030 Agenda goals, both domestically and internationally. I'll briefly mention 6 of them. Number 1, Canada will be launching a Development Finance Institute in January to support the 2030 Agenda and the Paris Agreement implementation. In line with our feminist international assistance policy, it'll pay particular attention to local small and medium-scale enterprises, notably women-owned and those that empower women. Number 2, my government and Canadian partners launched an innovative public-private partnership for sustainable development in frontier and emerging markets. It's called the Impact Investing in Frontier Markets, or INFRONT. Thirdly, Canada has been working to positively shape global discussions on financing for development, including by partnering with the multilateral development banks and the private sector on economic and social infrastructure, and piloting innovative and blended financial mechanisms. Fourth, and consistent with the Addis Agenda, Canada also targets support to help developing countries promote an enabling environment for growth and investment through domestic resource mobilization. Fifthly, Canada is pursuing a progressive trade agenda to make trade work for more people, making sure that its benefits reach those trying to provide for their families and build for their future prosperity. Sixth, and related to the fifth, Canada and Jamaica lead a group of friends of SDG financing at the UN in New York. Representatives from over 50 countries, plus representatives of the UN, the World Bank, and the private sector are participating. The group is a platform to promote solution-oriented ideas for unlocking finance for development. A few guiding principles. The Financing for Development agenda is a universal one, and like the SDGs themselves. Countries like my own, for example, will need to examine their own domestic policies and regulations to help unlock the flow of long-term capital to developing countries, while also developing ways of meeting our own SDG financing gap. Central to this agenda must be a commitment to achieving gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls. We will not achieve the SDGs or increase financing if we do not make significant strides in this area. It's estimated that $28 trillion is missing from global GDP because of gender inequality. I want to take this opportunity to highlight Canada's commitment to integrate gender equality into every aspect of our development assistance. Canada's feminist international assistance policy recognizes that supporting gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls is the best way to reduce extreme poverty and vulnerability and to achieve all 17 SDGs. Canada also strongly supports efforts that ensure each of the Addis Agenda action areas is implemented in a gender-responsive manner. Finally, our commitment to creating innovative partnerships will be critical in our efforts to finance and ultimately achieve the ambitious Sustainable Development Goals. We remain committed to finding new approaches to achieve our objective of people-centered and planet-sensitive prosperity for our citizens. The stakes are simply too high. I thank you for your kind attention.
I thank the distinguished Ambassador of Canada for his remarks. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of the European Union.
Thank you. Your Excellency, Dr. Ahmad Hassan Al-Hamadi, Your Excellency, Mr. Liu Zhenmin, Your Excellencies, dear colleagues. The EU welcomes this conference and warmly thanks the State of Qatar for its hospitality and also for all its important contribution to cooperation on sustainable development. The EU remains committed to multilateralism and to forging a strategic alliance with the UN system. The UN development system serves this common endeavor, and the commitment of all involved stakeholders is important. We see the Addis Ababa Action Agency as a game changer, establishing a new sustainable development paradigm with responsibilities for all, the primacy of domestic action, importance of good policies, and non-financial means of implementation. Thus, the European Union renewed its policy framework. The new European Consensus on Development sets out a collective vision for the European Union and its member states. It commits us to work better together to maximize the EU's development impact by mobilizing and using all the means effectively to implement it. The EU and its member states remain the largest provider of official development assistance in the world. In 2016, collective EU development assistance increased for the 4th consecutive year, reaching 75.5 billion euros. This is our highest ever level, representing close to 60% of total global ODA efforts. The EU is committed to achieving the 0.70% ODA GNI target within the time frame of the 2030 Agenda. The EU's ambitious external investment plan will encourage investment in our partner countries, in Africa and the EU neighborhood. It will promote job creation and sustainable development, crowding in private investors, among others. The European Commission is currently coordinating a Financing for Development report to be issued in April 2018. It will demonstrate how EU actions have contributed to mobilizing financing for development from various sources: domestic, international, public, private. It will monitor progress in the last 2 years for both the European Union and its member states. Thank you for your attention.
I thank the distinguished representative of the European Union for his remarks. I now give the floor to the distinguished representative of Venezuela. You have the floor, Madam.
Thank you very much, Excellency Ahmad Hassan Al-Hamadi, Excellency Liu Zhenmin, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. In the name of the government of Venezuela, of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, I want to thank the State of Qatar for organizing this conference, and also to DESA for all the support and give us the opportunity to be here today. I want to first take a few minutes to explain some principal ideas of how our government approaches the issue of sustainable development and financing for development. In this regard, in a world that is marked by uncertainty and threats of intervention against sovereign countries, the respect of the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations is more necessary than ever. The challenges posed in the economic and social sphere that have an impact in the implementation of 2030 Agenda and the Action Plan of Addis Ababa make the mobilization of resources of critical importance to contribute to the eradication of poverty in all its forms and dimensions. To assist in the development processes, it is imperative that there is an autonomous and sovereign management of natural resources, so that countries are able to obtain directly the benefits of their exploitation without the intermediation of transnational. In this way, they will count on the necessary resources to finance their own development. Likewise, the enactment and application of unilateral coercive measures of an economic, financial, or commercial nature that are incompatible with the Charter of the United Nations, such as those that are affecting our country, do not contribute to these efforts that are being made in the pursuit of economic and social development of the people affected by them. This is why the international community must take decisive action to contribute to their lifting. Financing for development is increasingly scarce and at the same time more necessary than ever as means to implement the 2030 Agenda. That is why it is necessary to transform and implement a concrete, decisive, and real manner the commitments assumed by the Monterrey Consensus, the Doha Declaration, and the Addis Ababa Action Agenda on financing for development. Our country is a promoter and a defender of South-South and triangular cooperation as an instrument to achieve a more harmonious and balanced development, where PetroCaribe is a clear example on how Venezuela has contributed to the peoples of the Caribbean by facilitating access to energy resources, through a new scheme of favorable, equitable, and fair exchange between countries of the Caribbean region. Now, explaining a little bit on how our country has started this process of implementing the 2030 Agenda. On 2016, we make our national presentation on the high-level political forum. And there we were explained how we aligned the historical, national, strategic, and general objectives, as well as the public policies established in our National Development Plan 2013-2019. And to align this plan with the 2030 Agenda, contemplating 96% of our national objectives linked to the SDGs. In these 2 years, we have been continuing this work to aligning the annual operational planning for also the 2018 fiscal year with the budgetary support for the SDGs and how all the government will work together with interlinkages and cross-cutting programs to back up these public policies. We have, and I will explain very short, we have a high-level body called the Council of Vice Presidents, comprised of six sector vice presidents and headed by the country's executive vice president. They meet regularly to analyze cross-cutting sectoral and cross-sectoral aspects of the development policies that are related to the National Development Plan, and the Ministry of the Peoples of Foreign Affairs will accompany the coordination of these offices also with the Ministry of Public Planning. We also have we work together with the National Council of Human Rights that also works also with the civil society in the implementation of the agenda. And finally, we would, again, thank you for organizing this meeting, and we reaffirm the need to join efforts among states that lead that the establishment of agreements with a view to strengthening strategies in favor of the eradication of poverty, exclusion, and the full implementation of the objectives that we have agreed in the last 2 years. Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished representative of Venezuela for her for her remarks. Dear colleagues, I think countries are inscribed for to speak on the list of speakers is Argentina, Australia, Sweden, and Colombia. I think that's enough for the morning session. Of course, we have a round table for the afternoon. There'll be plenty of time for those countries who want to speak. So I hope to be for the 4 speakers, you'll make very concise comments. And so next, give floor to the distinguished ambassador of Argentina.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I would like to express the appreciation and gratitude of my country to the state of Qatar for organizing this high-level conference. The exchange of country experiences and peer learning of national policy developments, the identification of challenges and the strengthening of international coordination are all key elements if we are to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals on a global scale. As expressed in the Addis Ababa Action Agenda of the 3rd International Conference on Financing for Development, we must address the challenge of financing and creating an enabling environment at all levels for sustainable development in the spirit of global partnership and solidarity. Argentina considers that the United Nations continue to play a crucial role in the follow-up of commitments made by world leaders in relation to the financing for development and the means of implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development to assist developing countries in achieving their objectives, including the mobilization of financial resources, capacity building, and technology transfer in favorable, concessional, and preferential terms for developing countries. To carry out the process of implementing the 2030 Agenda, the objectives and priorities of the Argentine government were especially contemplated. This initial process, in which 26 agencies of the National Public Administration and almost 100 ministerial and statistical officials participated, resulted in the adaptation to the national reality of 90 SDGs targets and the selection of 222 linked monitoring indicators with their metadata. Additionally, for the accountability process, a web platform was developed for the public dissemination of statistical information linking to the SDGs and disaggregated at the federal level, which will be operational by the end of the year. The adaptation and implementation phase left important lessons and challenges for the coming years. In terms of the immediate challenges, we are able to identify the consolidation of monitoring is one of the most important. If we want to enhance the success of the implementation of the agenda, an effective and transparent follow-up of the progress that can contribute to decision-making on actions and investments is required. Second, we must seek the means of implementation that are necessary to achieve the defined goals. And third, the third major challenge is to strengthen coordination between stakeholders and to continue to create new areas of participation and exchange in order to transform the 2030 Agenda objectives into concrete initiatives that are measurable. To end, I would like to reaffirm the commitment of Argentina to implement the 2030 Agenda and recognize that poverty eradication is the greatest challenge facing the world and Argentina. We have aligned our objectives and priorities to this 2030 Agenda, and we made progress in this implementation. We will continue working tirelessly to achieve public policies to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank the distinguished ambassador of Argentina for his statement. I now give floor to the distinguished ambassador of Australia. You have the floor, sir.
Mr. Liu Jianmin, Undersecretary General for Economic and Social Affairs of the United Nations, and His Excellency Dr. Ahmad Hassan Al-Hamadi, Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the State of Qatar. I would like to thank the State of Qatar for hosting this conference. It's a very important one because we recognize that achieving the 2030 agenda will require moving billions of dollars in official development assistance to trillions of dollars in investment of all kinds. The Addis Ababa Action Agenda recognizes this large financing gap and looks beyond aid to domestic resources, trade, and private sector to finance the Sustainable Development Goals. I'd like to talk a little bit about what Australia is doing to meet its Addis Ababa commitments. Australia continues to use its ODA in new and innovative ways to catalyse and leverage finance, particularly domestic resources and private sector investments, which are overwhelmingly the largest sources of financing for development. And that's why Australia strongly supports the Addis Ababa Action Agenda on financing for development. Examples of Australian efforts to leverage additional finance for development include our commitment to double by 2030 our ODA investment to help countries strengthen their tax systems and mobilise their own resources for development. That's as a founding member of the Addis Tax Initiative. And our business partnerships platform launched in November 2015. Under this platform, the Australian government matches funding from business for projects that support commercial objectives while advancing Australia's aid investment priorities. Australia also works closely with multilateral financing institutions, including through blended finance, for example, the Green Climate Fund and the Private Infrastructure Development Group and multilateral development banks. The Australian government also uses bilateral financing approaches that blend government grants with other forms of public and private finance. For example, investing in women will empower women by increasing private investment in women-led small and medium-sized enterprises. The Private Financing Advisory Network is a clean energy investment accelerator that advises businesses in developing countries and matches projects with private financing. The Australian government, through our Foreign Minister, Julie Bishop, announced on the 14th of November the Emerging Markets Impact Investing Fund. This $40 million innovative financing mechanism will help small to medium-sized enterprises in South and Southeast Asia access the finance they need to grow. It is expected to be operational by mid-2018. This fund aims to grow the impact investment ecosystem through two complementary approaches. It will invest in funds that provide capital to early-stage SMEs that benefit poor communities through their products, services, supply chains, or employment practices. Second, it will provide technical assistance to those funds and underlying SMEs to strengthen business practices and embed development impact considerations. I thank you for your attention.
I thank the distinguished ambassador of Australia for his remarks. I now give the floor to the distinguished ambassador of Sweden. You have the floor, Madam.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Sweden also joins in the warm thanks to the government of Qatar, especially directed here to Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Ahmed Al-Humadi. Thank you for the excellent and very interesting meeting that we have here today. Sweden strongly gives high priority to this conference and to the Agenda 2030. We do so also, especially since with these 2 years, as Sweden is a member, non-permanent member, of the Security Council for 2017 and 2018. All goals that we are discussing here today are equally important in the view of Sweden. They are interlinked and independent, and member states undertake to implement the agenda in its whole and should not engage in either cherry-picking or silo thinking. While the primary responsibility for the implementation of the 2030 Agenda rests with the national governments, we need an effective global partnership and strong multilateral institutions to support the efforts of governments and other actors to implement the agenda. The Swedish government stands ready to take on the challenge and work with all relevant stakeholders and will continue to support those countries that need additional resources and technology required for the implementation. Sweden has taken the lead in several of these areas that we are discussing here today. Sweden is committed, for example, to be the first fossil-free welfare nation in the world. The Global Deal initiative that the Prime Minister of Sweden, Stefan Löfven, has taken to promote decent work in Sweden and elsewhere in EU and globally is another important priority for Sweden. Since the feminist government of Sweden is pushing gender equality, I highly appreciated to hear, among others, our colleagues from Australia and from Canada putting a lot of emphasis on gender equality and to promote peaceful societies with the inclusiveness of women and girls. Co-hosting a UN conference on implementing Sustainable Development Goal 14 to conserve and sustainably use the oceans and marine resources together with Fiji was a topic at the Sweden-Fiji Summit on the Oceans in June this year. We do also share and thereby promote universal nature of the agenda. The Swedish government has further decided on a new aid policy framework in order to include important global challenges and ensure alignment with the 2030 agenda. We must strive towards optimal use of existing resources, which includes robust financing systems that match all these functions. Sweden looks very much forward to the important preparations for the summits and high-level meetings during 2018 in order to be well prepared for them. And therefore, this conference is a very important step in these aims. Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished ambassador of Sweden for her remarks. I now give the floor to our last speaker for this morning session, distinguished colleague from Colombia. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Chair. Honorable members of the Chair, representatives, ladies and gentlemen, I will be brief. On behalf of the Minister of Colombia, Mrs. Maria Angela Holguin, we are grateful with the government of the State of Qatar for hosting this important event and once again showing to the world its commitment to sustainable development. For Colombia, institutionalism is key to achieve sustainable development. If we ask for coordination among states, international financial institutions, and other stakeholders, we should do the same inside our countries. We should have the endeavor of having coordination at the national level. For Colombia, the 2030 Agenda and the Addis Ababa Action Agenda are not a coincidence with the context that we are living right now. For the first time in 60 years of conflict, we have the opportunity to implement an agenda that will foster sustainable development for every single Colombian and for every single human being. There's no way to achieve sustainable development if we do not have peace, as well as if we do not achieve peace, we cannot have sustainable development. This is why Colombia has developed 4 specific and concrete actions that I will briefly explain. First of all, we have created, in 2015, we were the first country to create an institution, a formal institution for the implementation of the SDGs. President Juan Manuel Santos, in February of 2015, implemented the High Institutional Commission for the enlistment and effective implementation of the SDGs, which to today has worked tirelessly to implement the agenda. For example, we have created a commission inside that committee related to link the Addis Ababa Action Agenda with the 2030 Agenda, which is a mobilization resource committee that is working nowadays. Second of all, Colombia has delivered a tax reform that is specifically directed to financing the SDGs. The Ministry of Finance has determined that 15 out of the 17 SDGs will be financed by the budget of 2018. Similar to the initiative that His Excellency, the Ambassador of Mexico, has stressed, Colombia has also adopted a document, a social, political, and economical document that will transcend this government and will become the 2030 Agenda, a policy of state. This document specifically is a point of reference for the government of Colombia to design and develop public policies to implement the agenda. Nowadays, out of the more than 1,000 territories our country has, 100% of them have been aligned through their development plans with the 2030 Agenda, which is for Colombia one of the greatest achievements we've had so far. Honorable members of the chair and delegates, there's not a manual to follow to achieve the 2030 Agenda, but this space of ideas is a catalyzer of synergies, and Colombia believes that these specific meetings and preparatory reunions are key for the full implementation of both of the agendas we've had. Thank you very much.
I thank the distinguished representative of Colombia for his remarks. And now I'll give the floor back to my co-chair, Secretary General. You have the floor, sir.
شكرا سعادة الأمين العام. أصحاب السعادة اسمحوا لي باسمكم أن أتوجه بالشكر لسعادة السيد ليو زينمان وسعادة السيدة كارمن ألينا وسعادة السيد مايكل غاربر وسعادة السيد فرانسيسكو جافيير وسعادة السيد يونوف فريدريك على ما قدموه من عرض خلال هذه المائدة، هي المائدة الأولى اليوم. كما أتقدم بالشكر أيضا لكل من ساهم من أصحاب السعادة، السفراء أو ممثلين دول، حول موضوع هذا اليوم. والشكر موصول لكم أصحاب السعادة أيضا على حسن استماعكم وتحملكم لهذه الجلسة. والآن أدعوكم إلى رفع هذه الجلسة والتفضل إلى طعام الغداء، على أن نعاود اللقاء معكم في تمام الساعة 3، وذلك للمائدة المستديرة الثانية. رفعت الجلسة.